Good evening, everybody. Goedenavond iedereen. Warm welcome. Welcome to the Balie. Welcome to this program this evening with Amani Ballour. Very happy you're all here. My name is Tim Wagemakers. I'm program editor at the Balie, and I'm really honored to be your host tonight on this special evening with Dr. Amani Ballour. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy that you came. And tonight is actually a special night, I would say. And this program is organized by Parvin Mirahimi from the Balie and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whom we also like to thank for reaching out to us in making this possible. Just before we start, I'd like to say a few household things. We've all know that there's been a global health crisis going on. And well, the one thing I would say is that unfortunately we have a slightly compressed program because some speakers, due to various reasons, either organizations saying, well, we cannot attend events anymore, or because they had a cold, just a regular cold, but still, let's not take any risks. They could not be here, but we still, and well, especially we're happy that you're here. We have Amani Ballour to tell her amazing story with us. And we also have our special envoy, Emiel de Bont, here tonight, who can tell us more about his work. Chams Eddine Zaougu wrote a column for tonight, and he was so kind because he came from Belgium and travel was quite difficult, but he made a video recording of his speech, so we can also listen to that. The final household thing, I think, would be we have a live stream, so people at home, there are many people who want to come, can also watch. And if you want to use the bathroom, I mean, sometimes people feel a bit of hesitation to go because there's a program. Please, the bathroom is there. Just go, walk in, walk out. There's no problem with that, I would say. First of all, yeah, if we turn to tonight, who has seen the documentary The Cave? Yeah, good. And who hasn't seen the documentary yet? Also a few people? Yeah, well, tonight we're going to talk about, or actually with a woman we've known through this quite impressive documentary about a hospital run in a cave in East Ghouta, Syria. And actually, the reason why we also said, because we're taking this, we're taking these regulations this month with events, that Amani Ballour is traveling right now to tell her story right now, and we think it's quite an important story to tell. So that's why we thought, yes, we're gonna host this event anyways with under 100 people, but still. And tonight we will talk about her experience, about the humanitarian crisis in Syria, and also there's a lot of room for your questions. So think about them, and then at the end we can talk about it. Because I think there are many things to talk about, not only her experience, but also, and Emiel de Bont can help us a bit with that. What role is there for the international community? What do we think that should be done? Hello, welcome. That's okay. Good that you're here. Welcome. And I think the night will be until approximately 9:30, maybe a bit longer if you have many questions, but we'll see about that. But first, for those who have seen the documentary, it serves as a kind of reminder. And for those who haven't seen the documentary, I think it's a good glimpse of what it's all about. I'd like you to see the trailer of the movie. So we're going to watch that, and then we're going to invite Amani Ballour to the stage. So let's watch it.
أيضا جيب شخص بتقوم بتصير إدارة منيحة
طيارة طالعة على فكرة قد المعلومة قد المخطط
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمورا بخير اصلا المراه ما لازم تشتغل نهائيا، المراه لازم تقعد في البيت. هلا انا لقينا انه اذا انتخبنا الدكتوره اماني اداره المشفى بتمشي منيح، عندي خيارك خطا، انا ما بشوفه هذا الموقف.
والله زادنا ايمان اكثر، والله العظيم لا نستسلم له ولا شيء.
I'd like to give her a very warm welcome and invite her to the stage. Dr. Amani Ballour. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for wanting to share your story with us, actually. I always find it a bit of a contrast when you watch a documentary or a trailer like that, and then you get the big applause for being here and doing what you do. How is it for you to be here, actually, and to sit in front of an audience and have to talk about it? Maybe that's a good place to start, to see where we are right now and what you'd like to share with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for hosting the event. This is really appreciated. To see this and to be here, it's not easy to me. I was there for more than 5 years in underground hospital, in dark place, under bombing, under everything, starvation and fear all the time. So to be out of Syria is very bad to me. I didn't want to leave my country, but it's very important to me. And to see people watching this movie, to me it's not a movie, it's my reality.
Yes.
It's what happened in Syria. And because this is still happening now in Syria, so I need to be here and to tell all the people around the world that everything you saw in the film, this is just only a small part of what's happening in Syria. Everything's still happening now for more than 9 years. We are starting the 10th year now. So people in Syria still need help. They're still under bombing. They are being killed. They are dying in the camps. So they still need help. And that's why I'm here and everywhere try to be their voice.
Yeah. And you live in Turkey right now?
Yes.
And you traveled to the Netherlands. How come that you are here this week?
Yes, I arrived here a few days ago. I supposed to be in Italy, but it's cancelled. You know the situation. So I'm here for more. I'm leaving on Tuesday.
You're leaving on Tuesday. And what is it that you already said that it's really important to share the story, to show that it's not a movie, it's reality and it's still happening? Is there something that in this week that you're here that you think like in the Netherlands we should talk about this, or this is why I'm here and, well, my precious time that I have, I want to use to say this or tell this?
Yes, this is very important story, because not because it's my story, it's all the Syrian story. It's just a small part of, it's very simple part to me. I saw much more. You didn't see in the film the dead bodies of children, the parts of bodies, the fear. You didn't see how we felt for about more than 5 years. So it's very important to all the people to see that, because I think that, you know, the international community, how they deal with Syrians for 9 years now, they're still watching, they do nothing, they send just some humanitarian aids. That's really frustrating for us, and that's why I'm trying to ask all the people to help Syrian, because I think it's our duty to help each other, to care about each other. They are humans, they are children and women, and they are suffering, so it's our duty to help them.
Yeah. You said a sentence, you said, I want people to know how we felt or what we feel in those years when you were there and also when the documentary was shot. How can you say something about that feeling that you had working there? Because to be honest, for me, it's a bit overwhelming to see the documentary, and I applaud you for that, but the strength to keep on going, because it is a story about humanity and doing something for other people, right?
Yes, I will tell you some just simple part of what I saw there. I saw a child, a 9-year-old child. He was dying after bombing. He has a very serious injury. He was bleeding from his ears, and a part of his brain was out. And his heart still beating. He's still alive, but there was no hope for them to survive, so we know that he is dying. And their parents, his mother and father, were watching him dying, and unfortunately he didn't die quickly. He's still for long hours. They know that he's dying. And his mother said to me, she thought that he's being tortured, so she asked me to give him something to die. just imagine a mother asked me to kill him, kill him. I decided to stay there to save the life, not to kill the people. And his father said, my child for 3 days didn't eat anything, and I just find some food. And he said to me, can we let him eat something before he died? So this is really frustrating. I just cried and I do nothing for them. I was working as a pediatrician. Every day I saw about 30 or 40 child. They were all hungry because of the siege. They always, when I ask them, I'm supposed to be a doctor to check them, to ask them about their pain. And they always said, we are afraid, we are hungry. Can you give us something to eat? And just they are asking me very simple and at the same time difficult question, because I have no answer. Why we are being bombed? Why we are hungry? Why the food is prevented? And I don't understand why. I have no answer for them. But can you imagine to hear that all the time? And I was under bombing. I tried to support them, to say for them not to be afraid. But I was afraid of bombing. I was under bombing all the time. It's very... I find no words to explain that.
Is there somewhere, because in this documentary it shows so much how you are very strong. You try to help those children, not only with medical, but also with putting a smile on their face. Maybe was there also someone who, or moments when you were supported, where you felt that, for me, it's not enough for me anymore to do it, but this is happening around me that pulls me through maybe to keep on going?
Yes, I try to support these children, and this is what make me going on, because sometimes we save a life, sometimes we help someone, we help a child. Sometimes I saw very sick children and they become better in front of my eyes. So I feel that I did a good job. I'm useful here. So that encouraged me to continue. And these very happy moments in middle of all these horrors, these very happy moments just to save a life, that means a lot to me.
Yeah. Because you wanted to be a doctor. You studied in Damascus to be a doctor. And then you went to East Ghouta because you were finished. And actually you also... I read that you also participated in the protests in 2011. You were there the moment that there was a lot of hope, actually, for change, right?
Yes. We were very hopeful when we started the Syrian revolution, the peaceful demonstrations. We saw what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, and we thought the same thing will happen in Syria, because Bashar al-Assad is dictator, and he knows all the people don't want him. And yeah, they started to shoot the people, and that was very shocking for us to see them kill the people. The first injured person I saw was 12-year-old child, and they shot him in his head because he was walking next to the demonstration. They shot on the people in very peaceful demonstration. They were carrying flowers. But yeah, after that, I had to decide if I want to continue studying in Damascus City or stay with these people. It was the beginning of the siege, so I decided to stay with these people because they are humans, innocent people. There were 500,000 people in Al-Ghouta, most of them women and children, and they need help. And that's why I stopped my studying and stayed with them.
Yeah. Some people say, and I also read that you find it a bit double, that you're kind of a hero or that you're someone to look up to. And I read that it always gave you a bit of an uneasy feeling, like not really the right label you wanted to apply to yourself. How is that now afterwards you are, well, as I said, you walk to theaters and people see like you're a hero because you help that much children. What do you think about that?
I'm not hero, I'm just a human, and I want all the people to know, just to be human, you can do everything to help others. This is our responsibility, because I'm human, and I feel these people need help. I'm responsible for them. I can do something, because I'm a doctor. I just graduated, and I had no long experience, but I can do something to help them, and this is our responsibility. This is our duty, all of us, just to be human. You can help others. You have to help others. And this is what I did.
Yeah.
This is all, and it's very easy to do that. All the people they have to do that.
At the same time, when you were working there, you got the question, I don't know, in what way the question came to you, but the question was, can we film what is going on in the hospital? And at the same time as you were treating those children, you and your staff thought this is important also. We also at the same time need to allow these cameras to film what we're doing. Was there a lot of discussion about that going on? I can imagine that it's also a big discussion like, should we right now do this?
Yeah. To see cameras in the hospital, it wasn't strange things. From the beginning, a lot of young people, they carry cameras and wanted to tell the people out what's happening in Syria. So from the beginning, when we started the hospital, a lot of cameras were filming that. But to make a film, they made reports on the news, and after a long time, people don't want to see more news, or they know there were in Syria. They don't know a lot, but they don't want to see the hard scenes. I mean, so
it's too uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah. But in 2016, we started to make this film. Actually, it was the idea of Firas Fayyad, the director. He sent his team and asked me to make a film in the hospital. I was at that time the manager of the hospital. I was very afraid of the hospital, afraid about the hospital and worried about it. I wanted to protect it, to make the tunnels. So I said no. And then he sent them more and more. I said no for 3 times because I just wanted to protect the medical staff, the patients. But after that, we were for about 3 years under siege, starvation, bombing, and nothing happened. We thought that time that all of us gonna die, no one will survive. And I didn't imagine that I will see the film. And then I said, yes, we can film that. And they promised to start filming without bothering me in my work, of course, because I need to focus on my work. And yeah, they filmed for about 2 years.
Yeah. And after the filming, what's the most important thing you take away from the documentary and all the... I mean, you describe it as a sort of, I wanted to show this so much, I want this story to be told so much. Do you have the idea that people have heard your story? That the people who you want to hear it have gotten the message?
Yes, I wanted this story to tell the truth, because Assad regime and his allies, Russia and Iran, they always lie and say we are fighting terrorists, and actually a lot of people believe them. And just I wanted to show the people the truth about what's happening in Syria. We were civilians, innocent people. The most injured people I saw in the hospital were children and women. So I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted this to be, it's my testimony on the crimes against the humanity. And actually, because always there's hope. So I hope that when people see that, if some people still alive in Al-Ghouta, they can help them after see that, after know the truth. So we wanted also politicians, international community, everyone to see that, to help Syrian, because they still need help. And after showing the film, I'm really frustrated because nothing happened. This is still happening now, and they don't help them, and everyone say it's not our responsibility, it's Russia, it's something like that. But they can help Syrian, but they don't have the will to help them.
Because I think you got invited to many people to talk with them, also a French minister, for example, and still you say, I tell my story, but I get frustrated because they say, we can't do that much. It's not our responsibility. Is that the feeling you get?
Yes, yeah, I really feel frustrated because, firstly, we don't talk about to stop this war. And I feel very sad when I just ask them to talk about the humanitarian needs. This is not our problem, not the humanitarian needs. Our problem is this dictator, this Assad regime, and Russia and Iran. But I know that they don't have the will to do that. So when I have a meeting with someone, I try to not waste my time and waste the Syrian time and ask about things they will not do. I just ask them to send more humanitarian needs because people are dying there. And I know they will not help more. They don't have the will to help. So I just ask them, and some countries promise to send money. But after that, money after money. And then just in 2 months, just last 2 months, About 1 million people were displaced from their cities. Assad regime recontrolled these cities after, of course, bombing and destroy the cities. Then they recontrolled it, and they displaced all these people. 1 million, they have nowhere to go. They have no shelters. It's very cold in northwestern Syria now, and they are dying. 7 babies died because of cold. They fled from bombing to die from cold.
Yeah. Do you also say then something to maybe us, not the politicians, but civilians in Europe or America? Because you see, well, there is this talk about the refugee crisis, about people coming to Europe, and some people saying that we should be very careful with how many people we give a place for various reasons. But to you, how is that to listen to about this whole discussion we are having right now?
That's also shocking to me, because we know this idea about Europe, that there is a human dignity and human rights, that they respect humans. And when they close the borders, and this is a topic that they want to discuss. I think when humans are, when they did all this long journey, they might die any time. They almost died drowning in the sea. And they did it to protect their children, to protect themselves, to find a new life. They have the right to that. I think this is nothing we can discuss it. This is unthinkable. To me, they have to receive these humans. No one helped them. They are in Europe and also the US. There are strong countries. They can help Syria, but they didn't. So Syrians have to die now in northwest Syria. The border with Turkey is closed now. The border with Greece is closed. They are dying everywhere, and they have no chance to go anywhere, and no one want to help them. So what after that? There are now millions are trapped in small area between Turkish borders and between Assad regime and Russia. They try to proceed every day. So they are trapped now. Just think about these people. We can't close everything in front of them.
Make them human instead of a story or a number.
Yes, they are humans. They have millions of children. They have the right to live. Just they want to live. They don't want to take everything from Europe just to protect themselves of dying, to protect their children. You know, even the camps in Syria are being bombed. They bombed the camps. So where they can go.
Yeah. There's one thing in the documentary that maybe was a bit hopeful, in the sense that you were the first female manager, I think, of a hospital in Syria. And in the documentary, there were quite some moments. Well, there was actually one scene, I think, that struck me, where there was this one man coming to you and saying, I'm not getting my medicine, I want a male manager, because then I might get my medicine. Do you remember, because actually, I would say that you're also maybe a role model to many other girls who think like, I can be a manager of a hospital right now. Do you also see it that way? Is that also maybe something that surprised you in the documentary that came out as sort of storyline?
Yes, actually, I was the first manager in conflict zone, not on all Syria. It's just in conflict zone, and I decided to be a manager because I was in the hospital since it was very small, and we tried to expand it to work. I was in the hospital for 4 years before becoming a manager, and I have a plan to develop it, to protect it. And the other manager who was before me didn't do that. That's why I wanted to be a manager of the hospital. I didn't surprise to see some men like that, because I know the culture in my community. It's very long time culture. People believe that women have to stay at home, have to work at home, or some of them say to me, you can work as pediatrician in your clinic, but not to be a manager of the hospital. It's not your work because you are women. I really felt that it's the time to change this image, because I believe that I can. That's why I wanted to be a manager, because I saw there were no difference between me and my colleagues. We are all doctors, we study together, we are in the same circumstances together, in underground hospital, in danger together. So I can do like they did, and maybe better than them. So I decided to do that. And actually, I could change some ideas because some men came to me and said, you can't, you are a woman. But after 2 years, Assad regime bombed all the hospitals around us, and they destroyed it. But they couldn't destroy the cave, my hospital, because it was really protected. And some men came to me and said, you were right, and you did a good job. I was very happy to hear that because I really could change this very long time culture. It's not easy to change that.
One man at a time.
Yeah, and I believe from that time, there's nothing impossible to change.
That's maybe a good phrase to close this part of the conversation. Nothing is impossible to change. I want to show, because actually what you were saying was we need to tell the story more. We actually need to make sure that everyone hears it. I want to show one more fragment from the film that shows actually the horrid conditions that you had to work under, also with the bombings. I think it's good if we watch at that. It's a short clip.
طيارة لساتها فوق. حاجة بقى تحلها من هون. ما على أساس بدهم يحرقوا الغوطة؟ إن شاء الله بيحترقوا بنار جهنم يخلصونا منها.
Daar is wel een.
خايفة تنصاب مرة ثانية ورجع. طوابق الفوقاني رايح منها جزء. خايفة على الأولاد اللي بالحواضن. ما في حدا من أهليهم. بدي أخلي فيه الأولاد على الأنقاض.
خبر أنا كل الشباب هون البلد ما يحطوا إنه مشكلة كانت خارجة عن خدمة.
إيه معلش.
تمام هيك؟
إيه معلش أنا هيك شايفة هيك أحسن. بركي وقت القصف الله يبطل فيهم إن شاء الله. في حدا بقسم الأطفال؟ عامر بدنا نبعث مرضى الاستشفاء على انقاذ روح لنأمن المرضى. وينه؟ كم مريض عندك؟
سيارة جاهزة.
ضاربين تخيلي ضاربين المشفى والمنطقه هي اللي هون كلها ضاربين السوق التجاري هلا ضاربين السوق كمان ما بعرف وين بدها تروح العالم ان شاء الله وين بدها تروح.
احنا جايين النورانية الطيارة قدامنا في المشفى اللي مقدم كله خوف انا واحد تتصور اخوة الله
الله يدمره من عنده ان شاء الله.
Do you know what the situation, or can you tell us a little bit more about what the situation is in Al Ghouta right now?
Yes, Assad regime and Russia controlled the area. They closed the hospital. They promised not to arrest the medical staff if we stayed. And two of my colleagues, two doctors, decided to stay and they arrested them. One of them, we heard that he's killed in the prison, and the other doctor is in the prison now. And they arrested some of medical staff who decided to stay. Yeah. In Al Ghouta, they arrested the most of young men. They forced them to fight with Assad regime army now, and there's still the old people and children and women.
You already said some stories about some colleagues. Do you have? Are you in touch maybe with other colleagues still? Do you still communicate with them?
Yeah, the other colleagues who are out of Assad regime area. In Assad regime area, I can't contact with them because it's dangerous for them. Yeah, I'm in touch with Dr. Ala, Dr. Salim. They are out. Dr. Ala is working now in Idlib. Dr. Salim is out of Syria. So yeah, some of them.
Yeah. After Al Ghouta, you fled to Idlib, or you took it was the choice, right, to stay actually what you just described, or take the bus to Idlib. And right now, I think Idlib is the place, well, the last place actually where there is some resistance to the Assad regime, but it's under heavy violence right now from both Turkey and Russia, and all tensions come together there right now. Do you still follow it? And can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on in Idlib right now?
Yes, in Idlib, yeah, the situation is very bad in Idlib. Russia and Assad regime, they didn't stop bombing. They bomb all the time. And they try to recontrol new areas every day. And now, and even it's supposed to be ceasefire now, but today they try to take in new areas, new villages. Last month they controlled 3 big cities, and they displaced, as I say, about 1 million people. So the people now, the civilians now in very small area between Turkish border and between Assad regime and Russia. And the situation for them is very bad. There's no hospitals, there's some hospitals, but every day Assad regime and Russia, they bomb new hospitals. They destroyed just last month 3 hospitals. And people now, if they have a sick child or a sick person, they have to walk for hours to reach to a medical center or to a hospital. They have just few medical supplies. Yeah. They always need more and more. They have no shelters, and some people are sleeping under trees in the cold. And I know in Afrin, there's each house in Afrin, there's about 3 or 4 families. It's very crowded, and still there's people sleeping in the streets.
And I think many children from Al-Ghouta went to Idlib, right?
Yes. Yeah, the same children who were in Al-Ghouta, they are in Idlib now at the same circumstances for about 9 years. Yeah. It's their whole childhood, and now they are young and they still under bombing, they still suffering, they're still afraid all the time, and they have no future. They can't think about future.
One thing that some people, and I think we're going to listen to Chams Eddine, who's going to say a little bit more about that, say that that it would be good maybe if Assad would stay, because then there would at least be stability in the region. No. What do you say to people when they say that?
No peace with Bashar al-Assad. No peace will be in Syria with Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad is a criminal. He killed about 1 million. He's now, at this moment, there's hundreds of thousands of people in his prison. He will arrest all the people. He arrests now. Every day he arrests someone in the area he controlled. And they tortured them in a very brutal way. I know just few people who can survive after they imprisoned them. And you can hear their stories about what was happening in the prison. They are tortured people, they kill them, they burning them, I don't know, they do all kinds of crimes, and they still doing that. So how can we imagine to stay under control of Bashar al-Assad? The area he controlled now is very bad places, and in Damascus city now he controlled them, and he said the war is end and people can come back. Everyone tried to come back to Syria, they arrested him. And in Damascus, people are sleeping in the streets. There's nothing in Syria, and organizations and UN, they can't help people in Syria. They can't support the medical side, they can't support because of corruption of Assad regime. They steal everything. They are now like a gang. They kill, they kidnap. This is the situation in Syria now.
And they're backed by Russia.
Yes, and no one of Syria will come back to Syria if Assad regime. But if we get rid of Bashar al-Assad and his allies, all Syrians can come back to Syria. We fled from Bashar al-Assad, not from like other people. At the beginning, there were no ISIS, no HTS. At the beginning of the revolution, they created it. They make this. And we fled from Bashar al-Assad, not from them. There's another area, there were no ISIS and no HTS, but we can't come back.
I think that's a good moment maybe to listen to Chams, who was going to hold a column here, but he videotaped it for us because he really wanted to be here and also say something about Assad. He's a political scientist and a journalist who wrote many books about dictatorships and dictators, and we asked him to say something about Bashar al-Assad and the regime, and we can listen to that. I think it's 8 minutes.
Are human beings with the tears wiped off. This is why the documentary, The Cave, about a poorly equipped hospital in the besieged city of eastern Ghouta is so important. War, as the chilling documentary shows, is not a statistic, nor is it just a word or an abstract concept. War is a child covered in blood. War is a baby suffocating on building debris. War is a mother crying, screaming to her dead son. War is a doctor crying. Dr. Amani Ballour, who you have the honor to have, and who was the hospital's manager, at some point asks herself, can we really be helpful and make a difference? I believe she did. In fact, I'm convinced Dr. Ballour made a difference. She didn't stop the war in Syria. She didn't prevent Eastern Ghouta from falling into regime hands. But she did save lives. She did offer comfort and protection to wounded and traumatized children. Her colleague, Dr. Salim, who plays classical music concerts on his phone during operations and who's constantly smoking when he's not operating, says he didn't have a choice but to save his fellow Syrians, to take up his responsibility. I think he's wrong. He did have a choice. Like Dr. Ballour, he chose to put himself in the path of danger to save others. He chose not to be with his family and to work under excessive stress and in difficult circumstances. Bashar al-Assad too had a choice. He could have met the quite reasonable demands of the protesters who 9 years ago, almost to the day, asked an end of the state of emergency, the release of prisoners of conscience, the freedom to protest, to fight corruption and provide jobs to recent graduates, to improve living standards. In the beginning, the protesters didn't even ask Assad to step down. They simply were asking for dignity and freedom. Instead, and like most Arab dictators, Assad treated non-violent protesters as terrorists and armed gangs linked to a foreign conspiracy. People were arrested, wounded, tortured, bombed, shot dead. If you intend to stay in power, you must make others afraid. If dictators had a handbook, this rule would certainly be in it. Assad took this rule to his extreme limit. To preserve power, he was prepared to wade through blood. He sponsored terrorism to discredit the protest movement. He integrated pro-regime militias into the army. He used the most horrible and hurtful weapons, such as barrel bombs and chemical weapons. Government hospitals functioned as an extension of the security apparatus. Hundreds of hospitals in areas not under regime control were directly targeted. He turned the Arab dream of freedom into a nightmare. It's ironic that Assad warned of chaos ahead of the protests. It brings a quote of Czesław Miłosz, a Polish poet, to mind. Learn to predict a fire with unerring precision, then burn the house down to fulfill the prediction. Disturbingly, the West and the international community are actually believing this me or chaos attitude. As one commentator regrettably put it, there is something worse than a dictatorship, worse than the absence of freedom, worse than oppression, namely civil war and chaos. The argument that a stable autocratic rule is better than a failed state has become fashionable again. Once again, the West is supporting autocratic leaders like Sisi in Egypt, Ben Salman in Saudi Arabia, and turning a blind eye to state repression, as if the Arab Spring never happened. How foolish and short-sighted we are. For too long, Western leaders believed that in pursuit of self-interest, supporting strongmen works. It doesn't. As the wave of protests, civil wars, and jihadi groups in the Middle East show, dictators are no bulwark of stability. The Middle East has become a minefield, not in spite of dictators, but because of them. Rampant political corruption, severe human rights abuses, infantilizing people and treating them as their flock, freedom being knowing how big your cage is, the hypocritical manipulation of religion, and decades-long divide and conquer tactics made the Middle East what it is today. It's a dangerous illusion to believe that supporting dictatorial regimes fosters stability. It's as if you would appoint a pyromaniac as chief of a fire department. If we are serious about stability in the Middle East, we need to realize that dictators are not part of the solution. They are the problem. Let's act accordingly. Let's stop hiding behind the argument that the Syrian war is a complicated, faraway problem that we can neither understand nor influence. A leader who is willing to gas people and systematically bombs hospitals is neither complicated nor difficult to understand. Let's not do what Assad is doing. Let's not treat Syrians as subhumans, as just numbers. Their suffering is real. Thank you.
Yeah. When you listen to that, I think you already said just before that in answer to what we should think of Assad, right?
Yeah, I agree, really. I totally agree. This is really, Bashar al-Assad is dictator. Of course, they are not the solution, and the Sisi also and others. Of course, I totally agree with this opinion. Yeah. And I think in the West and in the US, they know that very well.
They know that very well, but they don't act accordingly.
Yeah, they support the dictators, not do nothing. No, they support the dictators. They want them to stay.
Yeah. Do you see, maybe before we go to Emiel de Bont also, do you see in your contacts maybe, or people you speak to, also that that there is some shining light shining through somewhere, or some hope? Or is it at the moment and then we just need to paint a real picture so bleak and you don't see anywhere where it's going?
Actually, I don't like to be very hopeless, but I don't see hope now in Syria or something good will, because we see the situation. Millions are suffering. No one care about them. They were in big area, but now it's smaller and smaller, and no one care. No one do anything. You know, they decided to close their borders to protect themselves from these humans. So I can't see hope now, but at the end of the day, justice will be done.
Yeah. Maybe just to make it round and to understand also for you where you are going. You are now living in Turkey, right?
Yes.
So you're, I think, applying to go somewhere.
Yeah, I had a plan before the corona. We don't know. I had a plan to have a tour in Europe and in the US. I have fundraising events to support the fund I created to support women and empower them. But a lot of things now has been canceled. And I have some meetings, and also, so I don't know yet, but when my visa will end, I will come back to Turkey.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the fund you have where you try to empower women?
Yes, I called it Al-Amal. It means hope in English, to bring hope to the community by supporting women and young girls in conflict zone, to give them good opportunity to study, to have good health care. I'm trying now to do fundraising events, to get donations, to start working. I have a lot of projects to start in. The first thing will be to train nurses and midwives, because we need a lot, especially in Syria, and we need to train them to be useful.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good moment to invite Emiel de Bont to the stage. He is our special envoy in Syria, actually. Give him a warm welcome. Emiel de Bont. You can still sit, yeah. Because maybe it's good that you're here. we've been talking quite a lot already, but maybe first of all, can you say us something about what a special envoy does, to introduce yourself, and then how you've been listening so far?
Okay, but first of all, let me start by thanking the Balie for organizing this and hosting this event. We're into the 10th year now of this brutal conflict, and leaves very little to the imagination as to how bleak it is. But after 9 years, it is very important to retain political attention for this, because that seems to be waning every now and then. And it is good to remind our political class that this conflict is still there and is not going to go away. And what I feel tonight in particular is, well, obviously seeing those images breaks your heart. But I also feel humility to be in the presence of Dr. Ballour, who has done some incredible things underneath the ground. So that's what I wanted to get off my chest, first of all.
Yeah, yeah. And then the last thing that's open is, can you tell us a little bit more about, so that we can understand in what capacity you are here? You're our special envoy in Syria. What does that mean?
Well, maybe I should point out that I travel to many places, but except Syria. So a lot to Istanbul, Brussels, of course, Paris, Geneva. Ankara was in the planning until the coronavirus broke out. I'm in fact the fourth envoy in this position. I think it started out in 2011, 2012, when a kind of opposition in exile was forming in Istanbul, and many European countries appointed special envoys to that opposition, which acted a bit like a government in exile. We were hoping it was going to be a government in exile. So what we do together with, I don't know, I have a colleague of mine, Renkov, he's been dealing with Syria for many years. We have literally tens and tens of people in the foreign ministry, other ministries that deal with Syria on a daily basis. And to coordinate that, we have a core team. And at the head of that is a special envoy for Syria, which is me. And what we do is we try to put an end to this conflict, but it has to come through some kind of political process that I'm afraid is not gaining any traction whatsoever.
So how do you listen to Dr. Ballour saying, I have a cri de coeur, I want my message to be heard, but I have the feeling I get more frustrated every time because they hear me, but then don't act accordingly to it.
Yeah. Well, I can assure you and Dr. Ballour and everybody in this room that that sense of frustration is shared by many. Just like it's very tough to be a doctor under those circumstances. Sometimes it's also a little bit tough to be a diplomat under these circumstances. And but I was once told by a very senior American ambassador that in our profession as diplomats we have an obligation not to become cynical. So that's why we get out of bed every morning, and although the odds are very much against us, we try very hard to make that difference, however small.
Yeah, yeah. There's one word I think we haven't, and I was also curious how you look at it, Dr. Ballour, is the word accountability. Because the conflict is still going on, and at the same time we're looking for, can we get people to justice? Can we get people to be accountable for their acts? I think one of the frustrations, I don't know how you felt when you heard it, was there was this famous red line that shouldn't be crossed in the conflict, and then it was crossed and nothing was done. What do you think would be a good step to in the process of trying to get something done? Also work at accountability at the same time, because you shouldn't forget that, I would say, in the course of it.
Well, I mean, it's always dangerous to draw red lines in the sand of the Middle East, because particularly dictators have a habit of testing those lines and see how far they can go, and that's exactly what happened in 2013 when the chemical weapons were dropped on Ghouta, and President Obama basically deferred his decision to Congress, which said, let's not intervene. On accountability, well, that's one of the things that we do. We have, I would say, very substantial, very comprehensive programs. I can't say very much about them in public, that collect evidence from a variety of sources, and that is passed on to organizations like the ICC, like
Criminal Court,
like in some cases national jurisdictions, but also to this mechanism which is called the IIIM, which I visited the other day in Geneva, which has its own very secure compound and a standalone service, extremely well secured. And they are compiling all the evidence that is put to them, and we are talking literally about hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence that are prepared for criminal cases against the perpetrators. That day will come. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but that day will come.
Dr. Ballour, maybe, because I think next week you're going to visit the minister also of the Netherlands, two of them. You're going to visit Kaag and Blok. What is the most important, and then I think we can go to also questions. I think maybe people have questions. What will be your most important thing you want to say to them when you see them next week?
Actually, the most important thing now, I'm going to talk about the humanitarian needs in northwest Syria, because I say people, millions there are trapped, and there's just 2 humanitarian corridors, and you know, after 6 months they will stop. So we want to make pressure to keep it and to send more humanitarian aids to these people, and also to make a pressure on Assad regime and Russia with other European partners to stop killing people.
Are there people who say, I would like to ask something, or I'd like to add something to what we've been talking about? Yeah, I'm coming to you with the microphone so people also who are looking at home can hear it. Yeah, and I'm going to hold the microphone.
Hello, my name is Trace Ahler. I'm a teacher in Holland, and I'm working in this moment in an interior organization that is called War Child. That's my interest in all children everywhere in the world being in a situation of war. There is a discussion about the situation in Greece, where there are Syrian families with children. They can't get to Europe. There is the problem where you talk in North Syria about children and their families. Our government refuses, with bad excuses, to take responsibility in getting people here. There are other countries in Europe, for example, Germany, where they accept, in this moment, to accept refugees in these terrible situations. My question to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where that is represented, is why do we this or don't we this?
Thank you for your question. Is there something to say about that? Because that's right now, I think, a very pressing issue. What are we going to do with the people in Greece right now? There's a lot of pressure, or the people who are stuck. Is there something you can say about that?
At the moment, very little, I think. I think it's important to note, however, that the people that are massing now on the Turkish-Greek border are not principally Syrians. They are Afghans, they're Pakistanis, they're from other parts of the world. So it seems to be somehow unrelated to the ongoing conflict in Syria, which is basically my remit.
Yeah. Not less pressing, but different.
Not less pressing, but different, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our government about accepting refugees in very difficult situations.
Yeah. Well, I think you've also said something about that, right, Dr. Amani, that you think that this attitude is way too non-accepting instead of the other way around.
Yes, yeah. A lot of Europe countries, they don't want to receive more refugees, and unfortunately some people, not only the governments, they don't want that. Just I want to say that they are humans and they have the right to live and all these countries are responsible for the war in Syria because they didn't do anything to stop it.
And what do you say to, for example, the French minister or someone you speak, and you tell them this also?
Yeah, I met last week, I think, or two weeks ago. I met the French foreign minister, and he said the day before he said that they will not open the borders. I tried to explain the situation. I think they know, but I explained a lot about the circumstances which make these people to flee in this way.
And what was his response to you?
He said it's complicated, but we try to help. We're gonna try to help.
Yeah.
The diplomatic help.
Yeah. Any other questions? Are there any other people who maybe seen the documentary have a question? Yes.
Yes, I'm Jaap. I'm a general practitioner in Amsterdam. And I'm wondering, you lived so many years in the cave with day after day, so deeply traumatic experiences, how you deal with it after your life now?
I think I still have hope that I can help more, I can do more, because people are still suffering. And that's why I'm trying to encourage myself. I'm trying to be the voice of these people who I saw. A lot of times I almost died. A lot of times I saw a lot of dead bodies, especially in the chemical attack. I saw a lot of dead bodies of children. I couldn't help all of them, but I promised to be their voice. And this is what I'm trying to do now, to be the voice of these people. This is a treatment to me. I feel happy if I help someone of them. So I'm trying to do everything I can to help them.
Do you have a support system around you right now? Because I can imagine you're traveling a lot to tell your story. It can also be quite lonely maybe to go to one place and then the other place again.
Yeah, I was traveling with the SAMS, Syrian American Medical Society, but they couldn't continue that because of they had to come back to the US. And Dr. Mufaddal was supposed to be here today, and he called me today morning.
Because he needed to go to the US because otherwise the travel.
Yes. And I also had to go there, but I couldn't. Now I'm alone, but I will continue.
Yeah, and you have someone with you tonight, right?
Sorry?
You have someone with you tonight, right? Also to travel with.
No, my husband.
Yeah, your husband. Yeah, well, that's a good thing, right? If you, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
My name is Abel Ribbink. I'm a student. I have a question for our special envoy. Is there any leverage that the EU might have in any potential future settlement in Syria? Obviously, there hasn't been like a military intervention. So do we hold any leverage, or are all the cards with the Russians and the Iranians and the Assad regime?
Good question.
Yeah, it is a very good question. It is, I would say, apart from the humanitarian imperative, I would say it's the number one priority of myself and my European and American colleagues is to try to create leverage. Sometimes you think you have it, and then it turns out that the other side has a different interpretation. There is a misunderstanding that's been taken hold, is that we do not talk to the regime. We do talk to the regime, but indirectly, of course. I mean, we don't have direct contacts with the regime because we have no relations with it, and we have no wish to have relations with this vile regime. But we do talk to the United Nations, and we do talk to the Russians. And particularly the Russians are thought to have some leverage over Bashar al-Assad and his cronies. In practice, the Russians either pretend they don't have that leverage, or the leverage is indeed less than sometimes we think. It's very difficult to talk to a side that basically doesn't care at all what happens to the civilian population in Syria. So the leverage that we have and that we try to increase, and this is a bit of a private project of mine, is to try and hit the inner circle of the regime where we think where they do feel the pain, which is in their private fortunes. I mean, Dr. Ballour is absolutely right. We're not dealing with a state here. We're dealing with a mafia clan. that's basically using the country as its own farm and getting rich of it, including by stealing humanitarian assistance. And
so go after the money.
So we try to go after the money, and I think there is more that we can do in that regard, which is something I'm working on.
Yeah. The other thing maybe with leverage is there enough leverage in the European Union or in the international community to put human rights or human dignity above other interests? I mean, for example, last week there was this discussion about, I think, the no-fly zone that we wished to impose, and then it couldn't because of discussions between countries and
we don't really have any kind of positive interest in Syria right now with this regime. We have no intention, we have no desire to do business with that country, with that regime at the moment. The only interests that we have are negative ones. Syria under Assad is a net exporter of terrorism. It's an exporter of people fleeing. It's a net exporter of instability, and we don't particularly like it.
You also had a question, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ballour, for the example that you gave and still give, and for the time you spent with us tonight. I have a question for you. I'm Jan. I'm with ZOA, which is one of the Dutch organizations offering humanitarian assistance in Syria with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You were talking about the needs of the people. Could you explain what good support looks like according to you? What is it the people in Syria need most?
Yeah, the most important thing they need now is shelters, and it's really a big problem because they are now about 1,900,000. They need shelters to stay in. They have they make some clothes as a tent to stay in, and now there's strong wind. And I just today morning saw a lot of tents fly in the wind. So they need shelters. They need medicine and medical supplies and special kinds of medicine, like ICU medicine and the other kinds. They need food. And actually, the most important thing is protection. They need that. But for the organization, they can give them something like that. And there's some good organization working on the ground. They're credible, and all the people can donate for them and support them.
What organizations are that? Can you maybe, do you know the names?
A lot of organizations, but who make shelters and supply food is Mulham team and Violet organization, also good. For the medical organization, there's Chams and Awesome, and a lot of organizations. They are great, actually. They're working good job, but they need more and more money.
More support, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, my name is Minka Nijhuis. I'm a journalist. I've been writing about Syria for the past few years. I have a special for the Envoy. I would like to know where Holland stands on the issue of the white helmets, the rescue workers, if we get to the issue of humanitarian aid. About a year ago, Holland decided to suspend the aid to them. Can you enlighten us, where does the Dutch government stand at the moment? Because the head of the White Helmets, Mr. Zaougu, was in the Netherlands. Many rescue workers are calling from the ground and asking for an increase of assistance. So what is the position right now?
Well, I have some numbers which I jotted down before coming here. But I think we're in the top 10 when it comes worldwide when it comes to providing humanitarian assistance to Syria in a variety of ways. A lot of it goes through UN channels. Other stuff goes through international NGOs. I'm looking at Renko because we did support the White Helmets for a long, long time. There are some issues with internal management over there that is being looked into as we speak, which could explain. But I think we received him as well. And I spoke to Ash the other day, and quite frankly, I think it's another example of the deep cynicism of some parties to this conflict, it's never polite in diplomacy to point fingers and name names, but I don't mind saying that this is Russia that has extended a very sustained campaign in blackening the reputation of so many humanitarian organizations, including the White Helmets, that there are indeed in some countries, including in the Netherlands, what used to be called during the Cold War useful idiots that buy into this narrative. And the government doesn't. The government doesn't. We're increasing our humanitarian assistance. It already stands at something like 26 million euros a year altogether since 2011, more than 400 million euros. It's a drop in the ocean, frankly, but still, I mean, it's on the whole of the budget, it's very, very substantial, and this will just continue to increase, I'm afraid.
But actually, what I take away then from this night is if we want to work towards a solution, towards maybe more help, the trick is to do something about the Russian influence, not only on the region, but actually also on the debate we're having right now.
Well, I think what Dr. Ballour said, what the people need most is protection. And you can continue to pour in humanitarian assistance, but I mean, if the bombs keep dropping, I mean, that's really what it's all about.
A short follow-up?
Yes, well, I would like to comment on your answer, because I'm aware of the smear campaign of Russia. I've investigated it as well. I've also seen the report about the White Helmets from the Netherlands, that there were some internal administrative issues. What I was very surprised about is that compared to the millions and millions of dollars that are leaking away via Damascus and UN agencies, don't you find it a bit, as we say, looking for nails on low water, to suspend the aid to the White Helmets and still allow millions of humanitarian aid, including dollars from the Netherlands, being leaked away in the pockets of Assads and his allies?
The latter is a source of deep concern and frustration that we're taking the UN to task over this. I would like to add, though, that perhaps even the United Nations has not experienced in its existence having to deal with a regime that is so incredibly cynical as this one. Where basically you have to pay some kind of commission almost on your humanitarian assistance to be able to disburse it. And so I have a bit of sympathy for the UN colleagues who work on the ground and having to deal with this regime on a daily basis. But I can say to you and to this room that the issue of leakage is taken up in the United Nations at the highest levels.
Yeah. I want to go to a question here also, sorry.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Amani. Thank you very much for your time. I think the documentary, most people have seen it here, shows really well the real instances of terror and trauma that are experienced under siege. I was wondering if you could expand maybe on some of the emotions and the trauma of the longer and the quieter side of siege, because it's not always bombardment and bombing, but the actual the emotions of being trapped within a city by your own government for a period as long as 5 years, if you could expand on that.
Yeah. So the question is actually, can you say a little bit more how it is to live under siege actually, and then not the moments when the bombardments are, but well, the everyday life and how that maybe affects and the trauma that maybe comes from that. Can you say something about that? Sorry? I think both, but also maybe how was it for you?
Yeah, it was very hard every day to get up and go to work. It's the most difficult thing to do. Everything was very hard to see destruction everywhere. I was in a hospital. Everything around me is blood, is parts of bodies, dead bodies. I remember one day we couldn't bear the dead bodies because of bombing all the time. So we slept in the hospital with 70 dead bodies. in the same place. We slept with dead bodies in the hospital. We are, as medical staff, we are 100. And with these dead bodies, we slept in the same place. So can you imagine how kind of life it was? So I will never forget what I saw. And I think the other people, the medical workers, they can't forget everything. But we try to go on, to work more. When I left Al-Ghouta, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay. And it wasn't my choice to leave. They forced us to leave and to let our country, our memories, our hospital, which we built. So we're trying now to do everything to help people that will support us. I couldn't see this movie because it really re-traumatized me. But I can help more, and this is what I'm trying to think about. The only thing I'm thinking about that I can help now.
Maybe one last question, and then maybe it's good to wrap it up also. I think, is there something you'd say, like on this night, before we go to a last question, that you say, I really wish to stress this a little bit more because I am here right now and I want the people who leave this room to know this or to go home with this thought?
Yes, I want just to talk about people in Idlib. They are hopeless because they know that for 9 years, no one do anything for them. They moved from place to place, from Al-Ghouta to Idlib, and now to camps. And after that, there's nowhere to go. We can bring them hope. We can support them. We can donate for them, do anything. We can be their voice. Everyone, I think, it's our duty. We are humans, and they are humans. It's our duty to support them. Just be their voice everywhere. Talk to the politicians, to the parliament members. As peoples, we can make pressure on politicians, on government, and we can help each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there someone who has a last question? Yes.
Dr. Ballour, do you hold any grudges against Syrians who did support Bashar al-Assad? Do you have any resentment against Syrians? في أحكيها بالعربي. عندك.
Sorry, I felt tired after speaking English all the time, then I couldn't understand.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, sorry. عندك أي مشكلة أو غضب تجاه السوريين اللي وقفوا مع بشار الأسد بهالمرحلة؟
I think the most people in Syria now who are under control of Bashar al-Assad, they are afraid of him. I have a lot of friends in Damascus, and they sometimes try to message me to say to me, we are with you, and you know. I know a lot of my colleagues, so we graduated together, and they are working in Damascus. They feel guilty, but they are afraid, you know, this regime, the brutal ways to deal with people. I have I know a lot of people who just want to find a chance to say something against Bashar al-Assad. I believe that few people who support Bashar al-Assad, and even from his, I don't want to talk about sectarian, but from his sect, they don't like him. No one can like this criminal. All the people know the truth. We can't cover the truth. And especially Syrian, they know very well the truth. Just some people, they support Bashar al-Assad because their benefits. And of course, I'm angry of these people and I can't respect them. I think they have to held accountable with him.
Emiel, you wanted to?
Well, yeah, now that I'm here, I wanted to take this opportunity perhaps to leave the audience with something to think about. I'm guessing here in Amsterdam that quite a few of you in the audience were critical of the 2003 American-led intervention in Iraq. In 2013, a new US administration decided not to intervene in Syria. So basically the West ceded that space. It left the space for others to fill. That space has been filled by an axis of thug states led by the Russian Federation. So while we all have to draw lessons from our interventions in Afghanistan, where I served, or Iraq, that I studied, Syria is what non-intervention looks like. And it's a hell of a lot worse. So I wanted to leave you with that.
I want to leave us all with one more. I'd like to thank you, Emiel, for joining us in this conversation. But actually, after such a night, you know, how are you going to end this? And the way I think about it, or how I now feel about it, is that I'm really, in a sense, and I'm happy that you're all here to feel the urgency tonight to listen to the story of Dr. Ballour. I'm really happy with that. But also that, well, there is a responsibility to keep this on the agenda, to spread your story maybe. And I hope that many people watch the live stream where we can share it with other people. I think we have many things to talk about maybe afterwards in the cafe. For now, I'd like to ask you finally, I'd like to wish you all the good things in the coming weeks. I hope your message gets heard by our administration, but maybe also by other administrations. And let's, in the end, give you a very, very, very warm hand of applause. And then thank you for sharing your story, Dr. Amani Ballour.
شرايك تالف تجري بلا عقل وما يدوم غير الله واللي ما شفاه راه يندم بحياته كل ما عمل